Hello, thank you for joining us here on Whether or Not. We have a great show lined up for you, as we'll have Michael with our forecast, and then we'll have Veronica with a very interesting feature on heat index, and then we'll also have some exciting nature in the news stories for you. So sit back, relax, because Whether or Not starts right now. Hello, thank you for tuning in to Whether or Not. I'm your host, Brian Mastro.
And I'm your forecaster, Michael Priante.
So we've had some very hot and sticky days the last couple of days, and it's been pretty miserable just to be outside. Is there any relief in sight?
Yeah, it has been pretty sticky and warm for these past couple of days, and I'll have you know right now that there is relief in sight. We have a cold front coming through later on Friday, and that's going to be bringing in some cooler temperatures and especially less humid conditions going into the weekend. But more on that in my extended forecast coming up.
Well, that's good to hear. We definitely do need some relief from this heat. But for now, let's check out some exciting nature in the news stories.
Moon is expected to occur on September 27th of this year, but for the first time since 1982, this astrological phenomenon will be combined with a partial lunar eclipse. A supermoon is a special phase of the moon when it is at its closest approach, or at its perigee, to the Earth. This will give the moon a slightly larger look in the night sky. Likewise, when the moon is at its farthest point from the Earth, it is at its apogee. On the other hand, a lunar eclipse occurs when the moon is being shadowed by the Earth from the sun. This will give it a reddish tint. The combination of the two phenomena will certainly make for a spectacular view, and the event will not occur again for another 18 years.
After a quiet beginning to hurricane season, the tropics have begun to heat up over the past couple of weeks. In the Pacific, there are three separate hurricanes, Kilo, Ignacio, and Jimena, which all achieved Category 4 status at the same time, a first in recorded history for the Central and Eastern Pacific basins. Meanwhile, in the Atlantic, the first major hurricane of the season, Hurricane Danny, formed before getting ripped apart by shear near the Caribbean. Tropical Storm Erica brought heavy rainfall and major flooding to parts of the Caribbean before dissipating just north of Hispaniola. However, Erica's remnants could provide a soaking to Florida this week. Lastly, Hurricane Fred just formed off the African coast and hit the Cape Verde Islands, the first time the islands have been hit by a hurricane since 1892. Fred is still active as a tropical storm and is expected to weaken as it moves into the central Atlantic over the next few days.
Michael Riley, a 14-year-old from Houston, Texas, died last Sunday from a flesh-eating bacterium which he contracted after swimming in a freshwater lake. The teen contracted the flesh-eating bug back in mid-August while he was swimming for his school track team at Sam Houston State Park. During the summer months, it is very common for these types of bacteria to thrive in warm, stagnant pools of fresh water, such as a lake, a pond, or even a hot spring. The infection enters the body, typically through the nose, and makes its way to the brain, where it can start to destroy delicate tissue. Cases like these are not as common, but they can be deadly. To prevent infections from flesh-eating bugs, the CDC recommends that swimmers hold their nose shut while swimming in lakes or ponds that could be infected with the bug.
The world's most attended annual sporting event got underway this week in Queens, New York. The 2015 U.S. Open began, and over 700,000 people are expected to come watch the world's best tennis players square off at the Billie Jean King Tennis Center in Flushing Meadows Park. Despite the project to put a retractable roof on Arthur Ashe Stadium, the weather will still have a large impact on the event, and the other courts are still left unprotected. Temperatures are forecast to be well into the 90s with high humidity as well, making conditions far from ideal for much of the two-week event. The athletes will have to endure through the conditions and persevere in order to become champion. And with Serena Williams chasing tennis history, the stifling heat could pose as big a threat as any of her opponents do. Record crowds expected, and fans attending the event are encouraged to drink plenty of water, wear plenty of sunscreen and light clothes, and to sit in the shade whenever possible. And now for details on your weather, here's Michael with your forecast.
Well, thanks, Brian. Yeah, it's going to feel a lot cooler as we head into the weekend. And I know if you are like me, you definitely have been feeling those warm conditions out there and has been feeling pretty sticky. But into the weekend we go. It's going to feel really nice out there. Starting on Friday, again, it's going to feel a bit warm out there still, and those muggy conditions are going to stick around for just one more day before a cold front moves through off the eastern seaboard, and that's going to bring in cooler and drier weather. But in the afternoon on Friday, a few spotty showers and an isolated thunderstorm is possible. Here or there, it'll be a hit or miss event. It won't be a rain out, especially for the Friday afternoon. So if you want to go out and do anything, a barbecue, hang out with friends, it'll still be a bit muggy, but still it won't be a rain out. This high pressure to our northeast will be building on in, and then by Saturday, it'll feel much, much nicer. A drier air mass will be in place, and it'll be cooler than it has been the past couple of days. So Saturday is definitely the pick of the weekend, and we have a football game coming up, so it's going to be nice, whether you're inside, outside, tailgating, or even viewing your football game in Philadelphia. It's going to feel really nice out there, especially since it's been really bad the past couple of days, and the trend continues into Sunday. High pressure is dominating the region. Sunshine all around. It's going to feel really nice. So to recap your forecast here, 82 degrees is what we're expecting on Friday. Again, notice we have an isolated thunderstorm in spots. It'll be a hit or miss event, so it won't be a rain out. Going into the evening, we're expecting a low time temperature of 65 degrees. Those clouds stick around, but then afterwards, past midnight, temperatures will dip down past 65 as cooler air will start to make its way into our region. And then we go into Saturday, which is where we'll see those cooler temperatures. But the big story is the humidity. It will become very less humid as we go into the weekend by Saturday, and the temperature will drop down to 80 degrees. Saturday evening, though, low temperature, 56. It's going to feel really nice on Saturday, so if you want to go out, take a stroll downtown. It's going to feel really nice with that temperature, 56. And then by Sunday, again, the temperature trend continues. A little bit warmer, though, 83 degrees, but plentiful sunshine is what you can expect for the weekend. So now here's Veronica with a story on the heat index.
Labor Day is the symbolic end to summer, but it doesn't truly end until the autumnal equinox, September 23rd. That means the phrase heat index can still sneak into the weather forecast. But what is heat index, and why is it brought up? Heat index is an index that combines air temperature and relative humidity, which is the amount of water vapor present in air, in an attempt to determine how hot it feels to a human. The human body normally cools itself by perspiration or sweating. This leads to heat being removed from the body by evaporation of that sweat. Relative humidity reduces the evaporation rate because the higher vapor content of the surrounding air does not allow the maximum amount of evaporation from the body to occur. This results in a lower rate of heat removal from the body, hence the sensation of being overheated. Heat index relates one combination of temperature and humidity to another. Its measurement has been based on subjective descriptions of how hot subjects feel for a given temperature and humidity. In this case, heat index can only be applied to humans, however dangerous heat can still affect other subjects such as household pets. If the temperature is 90 degrees Fahrenheit with very high humidity, the heat index can be about 106 degrees Fahrenheit. When the relative humidity is low, the heat index can actually be lower than the air temperature. If the air temperature is 100 degrees Fahrenheit and the relative humidity is 15%, the heat index is 96 degrees Fahrenheit. So what can you do to prepare and stay safe? Tune into your local weather station and stay updated on the latest weather. Urban areas are at a higher risk during extreme heat than people living in rural areas. You'll want to check regularly on young, elderly, and pregnant women. If you don't have air conditioning, plan places that you can go to stay safe and cool. It is best to avoid outdoor activities. However, if you must be outside, wear light, loose clothing, stay hydrated by drinking plenty of water, and seek regular breaks in the shade. Although it is least likely to have a prolonged heat wave during this time of year, it is always important to stay aware, informed, and have safety plans prepared. For Whether or Not, I'm Veronica Dolan.
Well, I'm Michael Priante again here with your extended forecast. Like I mentioned before, we've been dealing with those warm and humid conditions throughout the whole entire weekend. It's just been getting a little bit annoying here as it's the first week of September and we're starting to get into that fall-like pattern. So when is the weather going to be turning better for all of us? Well, as we head into the weekend, though, things are going to change, and it's going to be becoming much cooler and, most importantly, less humid. So here's a weekend recap and looking at what we can expect for the weekend. Again, Friday here, we're expecting a temperature of 82 degrees, but notice we have isolated thunderstorms in the forecast. They will be hit or miss in the area. It won't be a washout for many. So again, Friday is going to be another nice day, but it's just going to be hot and humid. However, though, as we go into the evening, 65 degrees, and then by Saturday morning, it should cool down a lot as we have high pressure building into the area, and that's going to be leading to those less humid conditions for your day on Saturday with a high of around 80 degrees. So it won't be a real drastic cool down, but in terms of the humidity, it will feel really nice out there. Saturday evening, though, again, based on what we had on Friday evening, it's going to be a 10-degree drop. It's going to feel really nice out there with a low of around 56 degrees. And then going into Sunday, we can expect a little bit warmer in terms of the high, about 83 degrees, but it's going to feel much nicer out there, a little bit warmer, and the sun's going to be out there, less clouds, so it's going to feel really nice. This weekend is just a really great weekend to do a lot of things. We have the football game, Penn State versus Temple out in Philadelphia, so whether or not you're barbecuing here in State College or you're visiting our team, cheering on the Nittany Lions, it's going to be a great weekend. And if you're going anywhere else, you're going to the pool, you're going to visit friends, anywhere in central Pennsylvania or all across the state, it's just going to feel really nice this weekend as we have lower humidity values and just overall lower temperatures for the weekend. So we're going in here into our extended forecast. This is looking out 1 week ahead, Monday through Friday. We start off on the cool side here, on the warmer side, around 85 degrees on Monday, but then by Tuesday, we're starting to come down a little bit, around the lower 80s. Wednesday, a few spotty showers here and there. Getting to near normal. Normal time temperature for this time of the year is about 76 degrees, so by Wednesday, we're hovering just around that temperature. But then notice by the end here on Thursday, we start to dip down the average, down below the average mark, which is 76 degrees. And then by Friday, we actually approach 70 degrees as the high temperature with mostly cloudy skies. So for next weekend, it's definitely going to feel much different as we progress through the week, the second week of September. And if you remember, this whole week has been really just horrible in terms of temperatures and humidity. And as we go through next week, it looks like it's going to be a pretty nice week, cooling trend. It's going to feel a lot like fall. But although as this is a week out, don't take this with a lot of consideration. Take it with a grain of salt because these forecasts, especially 10 days out, are always a little bit finicky because things necessarily don't turn out the way they do, especially Friday, 70 degrees. We'll see what happens. But in summary, it's going to feel a lot cooler out there. It's definitely a cooling trend and especially much better temperatures for your next week of September.
Thank you for that forecast. It is good to see that there's finally some relief from this heat and humidity on the way.
Yeah, it's definitely going to start to feel much nicer, especially after this really warm and humid week. But it's also going to start to feel like fall.
Yeah, a little bit early this year, which is good. And now we have the answer to our Weather Whiz Quiz question that we asked you earlier in the show. We asked you, what was the highest maximum temperature State College has ever recorded? Your choices were A, 90, B, 102, C, 85, or D, 106. If you guessed B, then you are correct. State College's hottest day was recorded on July 17th, 1988. Definitely a scorcher to remember. Now, it was really hot this week, but luckily, we did not get anywhere near that hot. That's all we have for you this show. I'm your host, Brian Mastro.
And I'm your forecaster, Michael Priante. Thanks for tuning in.